Good afternoon, Gamecock fans. I'm Spencer Ball.
And I'm JP Barry. Welcome to our first episode of Ball Don't Lie, a show where we break down South Carolina sports.
JP and I will be giving you our weekly insight every Friday.
This week on the show, we'll talk about the Gamecock Baseball's hot start.
Then we'll discuss the improvements of our men's basketball team.
Plus, an update on our absolutely stellar women's hoops team.
And without further ado, welcome to Ball Don't Lie.
Gamecock Baseball sure is off to a hot start, man, as they start 5-0.
Looking like some spring chickens, JP, that's for sure. Pitching is on the right track, and it's hard not to mention Jack Mahoney.
Yeah, Mahoney had a great year of rehab, and we'll look forward to seeing him back.
Yeah, he started really well. First time pitching in over a year for sure. I believe May 21 was his last appearance. And
you always hate to see injuries.
I hate to see it, but you love to see him come back the way he has. They're looking really good, and the pitching staff as a whole is...
Yeah, I was discussing this earlier, Gamecock Baseball, you really think they have an Omaha-level pitching staff. You have guys starting during the midweek, Eli Jersenbeck and Hicks, who would be weekend rotation pieces on top 25 teams. And Mahoney with his 9 strikeouts and 5 1/3 innings pitched in his first action in 2 years. Competition, is always a valid point, but I'm not sure you can really take anything negative away from how Mahoney looked.
Definitely, and it's hard not to mention Noah Hall and Will Sanders in that conversation too.
Just our all-ace SEC capable caliber pitchers.
And as we mentioned, their hot start sweeping UMass Lowell, getting the victory over Winthrop and Queens in the midweek games. They got a game later today against the Penn Quakers, starting a 3-game series this weekend. How do you think they're going to fare in that one?
Well, the Gamecocks historically fare incredibly well against the Ivy League. There's 37-4 all time. Our last series was a March sweep of the Cornell Bears in March of 2020. And, Penn starting their season this weekend against the Gamecocks. That's a hard test to come down south and play a team like South Carolina. I'm excited for this pitching matchup Friday, this afternoon, because the guy they have on the mound had a great year last year, one of the best pitchers in all of the Ivy League. Him going head-to-head with Will Sanders, it's going to be a sight to see, but we'll see if he can navigate our lineup, which leads the country with 20 home runs.
Absolutely, and as you mentioned, it makes pitching a lot easier when you have this high-caliber offense supporting you, especially looking at sluggers like Braylon Wimmer.
Oh, Wimmer, he was outstanding last season for the Gamecocks, one of their best all-around every single day. He started every single game for South Carolina last year. He was drafted in the 18th round by the Philadelphia Phillies, came back with a whole host of other guys who were drafted, such as James Hicks, the pitcher we talked about, and Noah Hall, our second man in the rotation. But Gamecocks, Braylon Wimmer, he is unbelievable. Early season slash lines in college baseball are always outlandish, but slashing 526, 591, and a slugging of 1.053 with 3 home runs, 12 RBIs. He's putting the bat on the ball, and it is going places, man. I've seen a handful of games in person already, and it's always a treat watching him come up to the plate. Especially
Game 2 against the UMass Lowell squad. That's the one that comes to mind for me. He just no doubt at a grand slam to left center, and it was great to see. And I think they're going to keep up this production as of right now. The bats are hot, and what an improvement from last year.
Oh, yeah. Last year, they were the worst in the SEC in several categories, and they bring in a guy like Monty Lee, who has history coaching the offensive side of the baseball, and what he's done so far, it's not just, a couple of star players, it's the depth. They hit the transfer portal really hard. They have some terrific transfers, and I'm really excited to watch them go. But another guy that's really mashing the ball is Cole Messina.
Hard not to mention him, too. Another guy with a grand slam on Tuesday against Winthrop. You can just pick a random guy on the roster, and chances are they've hit a home run already. They're just absolutely knocking the skin off the ball. And, he's batting .421, also with 3 homers, 13 RBIs, and
an OPS of 1.520?
It's incredible.
Aaron Judge won MVP with one barely over 1. Who's better, Cole Messina or Aaron Judge? I'm not too sure.
Maybe a small difference in caliber of play there, but hey, SEC baseball, it's the real deal, that's for sure.
Is it harder to hit a home run in Founders Park or to right field in Yankee Stadium? But this has just been such an awesome team to watch, and schedule is going to get a lot harder when you get into conference play, but watching the Gamecocks starting off this year, they've just been some really fun games.
Definitely, and also I'm excited for all the good home matchups we get to see this year. LSU and Florida both come to town later in the season. Those series are going to be fantastic.
Not to mention you end the season with a home series against the Tennessee Volunteers.
That's it.
Who coming out of last year were one of the best teams in college baseball history, ran into the Fighting Irish in the Super Regionals. But they're itching to rebound from that and just go completely crazy in the SEC. This is just be such a fun conference. Even Mizzou is playing well. So I'm just so excited for baseball this year, man. Got a game later today, got a game this weekend, or games, of course, this weekend. Got some midweek games. Some of the midweek games I'm so excited to watch because you're playing some real high-quality competition, and you're not even leaving the state. You got teams from the Big South like Charleston Southern, USC Upstate, teams from the SoCon, the Citadel, Wofford. You're not playing Wofford, of course, but you're playing some of those SoCon teams in South Carolina. There's just a wealth of great college baseball in this state. And, I mean, you can even go up north into North Carolina. There's some great teams. I am just so excited. When I'm back home up in Spartanburg, I'm going to go check out a Terriers baseball game. They play such a fun brand of baseball, chaos on the base paths, that, I mean, you can go anywhere in South Carolina and you can find a great fun ball game on a Friday night.
Absolutely. And as we mentioned, you can't really start a season better than the Gamecocks have. And we're going to show you some clips we actually got to witness in person. And JP, let me tell you, these clips, I mean, it just looks like a home run montage.
It looks like you're playing MLB The Show on beginner difficulty. You know, what I love about the stuff we have is how the ball is just, you can watch from our angle, you can just really see the ball bounce off the bat. And, they destined the kind of pop and the ping and the metal baseball bats, but you can when you get it all right, you can hear that ding, and it just flies out of Founders. So, I mean, I love that ballpark. I love watching us hit because we hit the transfer portal so hard last year, and we have brought in some major bats that are just so much fun to watch. And they just 1 through 9 in the lineups capable of taking a yard. And we're doing it to pitchers big and small. A key part of this offense has come from the new transfers the team has brought in from all across the country. I mean, just some real terrific transfers. You have guys from Oral Roberts and Caleb Denny, the outfielder. You have Gavin Casas, the first baseman out of Vanderbilt. You have Dylan Brewer, the outfielder from Clemson. Chris Veach, the utility infielder, two-way player from Presbyterian College up the road in Clinton. I didn't even mention Presbyterian as a great team in our state that went to the NCAA tournament and took it to Vanderbilt in 2021. So just Nick Proctor, the relief pitcher, the righty from Cal. Will McGillis, how could we not mention him, the mashing second baseman from Southern Miss. They're not just getting guys from all across the country, they're getting guys from teams that are really good, going deep in the tournament, winning their conference, all conference caliber players, power conference guys from inside the SEC. Monty Lee and Mark Kingston really hit the road hard, and I couldn't be more excited to watch the rest of the season from these guys.
Definitely, and as you mentioned, Monty Lee, that's a guy, we did a little story on last year with the hire, talking about how important he's going to be, and now we're seeing all that pay off. And Coach Kingston even said, it's not just what he's teaching them to do on the field, it's the relationships they're building. This team is getting tight-knit, and let me tell you, it wouldn't surprise me if they make a run at Omaha later this year.
Absolutely. They just have an outstanding... The great thing about baseball is pitching is the great equalizer. And South Carolina's pitching, I believe, can go toe-to-toe any weekend with anybody.
A 1.4 ERA on the season. I mean, that's
nothing to scoff at.
That's pretty good. So moving on, JP and I are going to give you a look at how the Gamecock men's basketball team is turning things around.
They really are. I mean, it's really been quite fun to watch. Here's head coach Lamont Paris about star freshman Gigi Jackson.
I evaluate Gigi differently, maybe than most. I just, for me, it's constantly about how aggressive is he being at attacking the basket, particularly. Can he generate shots? That'll be the next step. If he can attack consistently and then generate shots for other guys. And then how is he handling the emotions of the game? He's a young guy. Every place that we play is the most hostile environment for him. People can't wait to say something about him. Fans, players, cheerleaders, social media lights.
An 18-year-old phenom, Gigi Jackson, has really turned his play up a notch in past games.
He really has. I mean, he struggled a little bit to start the year, only shooting 41% on two-point attempts, which, when you're that big, people were kind of like, well, when's he going to start imposing his will down low? And that's what he's been doing. He's been taking advantage of mismatches. He's really learning the game. And, he should be in high school right now. I think that's something that people have kind of forgotten as the season has kind of stretched on into conference play, that this is a kid who's playing above his stature right now. I mean, should be in high school, should be having the time of his life, dropping like 50 points a night against kids that are way smaller than him. But he's testing himself with the medal of the SEC in basketball, going toe-to-toe with number 2 Alabama, number 10 Tennessee. I mean, some really great teams going on the road to Florida and LSU and Ole Miss and places that are really tough places to play. And you've been seeing him grow up in real time. And I want to really, Lamont Paris has done a great job of kind of tackling coaching a high schooler and kind of getting him adapted to this lifestyle. And, they've done this without some hiccups in the – I mean, there's obviously going to be hiccups. When you have a season that hasn't gone as you planned, I mean, you're in conference play and you're kind of struggling. But you get forged through that fire and you come out a better player, a better teammate, a better man on and off the court. I think Lamont Paris, he did a really good job of approaching that situation that happened after, I believe it was
the Arkansas game.
The Arkansas game. And he did it without losing anyone. He didn't lose. He could have lost the locker room by prioritizing the young, fresh star recruit. He could have lost that young star recruit by being like, you're going to act like a toddler, stuff like that. But he didn't. He approached it with such a great aplomb. And it was just, that's what makes me so excited to watch him in the future as he guides this Gamecock program back to where it should be.
And the team's gotten a lot better since that game. A lot of people thought that's when the wheels would fall off. But you got to remember, sometimes it keeps me up at night a little bit. I'm almost 2 years older than G.G. Jackson. He's doing things I couldn't even dream of doing. But yeah, for a kid that's just turned 18, being able to, kind of have that mistake, but able to learn from it and grow. As we mentioned, he's playing a lot better as of late. He's got 20 points and 8 rebounds in the big road victory against LSU. And just a couple nights ago against Alabama, put up 19 points on 40% shooting against the number 2 team in the nation.
Yeah, Alabama, great defense. I mean, they really swarmed the ball, and they were like, they tried to not get beat by G.G. Jackson, and he just imposed his will, something that, I'm sure the, 34 NBA scouts in attendance love to see. And, man, what a talent. And I think that this whole, you go through stuff like that to become a better but a better prospect. Mm-hmm. And teams are going to look at how G.G. Jackson handled that adversity. And I think that will help him in his NBA draft process.
Definitely agree, and it's hard not to mention another Gamecock that's been lighting up the stat sheet, transfer guard Meechie Johnson. Yeah,
Johnson coming from Ohio State. He was in a relatively, I don't want to say unused, but he wasn't getting kind of the burn that he felt he should at Ohio State. I mean, he hit some big shots for him early on in the last season. Hit a game winner, bank-in shot against Seton Hall in an early season tournament. And Ohio State had a good year, but he just didn't really get the playing time he felt he deserved. And Lamont Paris was like, hey, come to Carolina. And it's been such a joy to watch him play. I mean, the way he is able to guide the offense and move with the basketball. I mean, he's probably, if not the best, one of the top ball handlers for the Gamecocks.
Absolutely, and as we mentioned, heating up as of late, especially from three-point range. In his last 3 games, 19 points versus Vanderbilt, 3 of 7 from deep. 20 points versus LSU in the big one, 5 of 9 from 3, and 18 points a couple nights ago against Alabama, 4 of 9 from 3. I mean, that's a really high mark from deep, and him being able to do that consistently and lead the offense, I mean, that definitely does not go unrecognized.
And he's definitely kind of guy that can score at all levels. I mean, that's kind of an overplayed trend at this point, but you can see it. He's able to get to the hoop. He's able to score inside the paint. He's able to score in the mid-range. We've seen him knock down from 3 this whole season. He's no Chico Carter, shooting like 48% from 3. But Meechie has been I'm really excited to watch him next season with the Gamecocks.
Absolutely. I hope he sticks around because him and the rest of this team, if we get some parts that stay, really we had to rebuild the entire team brand new, which is why Lamont Paris, I think he deserves a lot more praise than he's getting because that's a tough task. He had to go out and find pretty much a whole new team and, try and compete in one of the best conferences in college basketball. It's tough.
It's hard to just completely restock your roster when you have both guys transferring and graduating out, and you basically have like 2 guys left. But possibly of all the Gamecocks we just mentioned, my favorite as of late, Jacoby Wright, had a little bit of winter woes. Started the year off really, I don't want to say poorly, but he was scoring 5.6 points a game, 1.6 assists per game, shooting the ball 34% from the field, 31% from deep. He was still knocking it down from the charity stripe, getting what he's due there. And only, he wasn't starting many games, just had 5 starts in those 22 games before February. But in February, well, he's really taken over.
Yeah, absolutely. It's hard not to talk about just how he's gotten a lot better, his improvement. I would say it's been a fantastic February. I'm going to call him Mr. February because, I mean, he's helped this team in their best month thus far. I would say against their most competitive opponents, being able to help them like this is definitely impressive. And here's some of his stats where he's just improved greatly in that mark. You can see how they've transitioned. And he's just shooting a lot better all around, getting a lot better looks.
53% from the field, 50% from 3. He's knocking it down from everywhere. I mean, some of his performances have been unreal. It's like 1 or 2 misses a game. And that jump in points per game, you see that he had 5.6 points a game before February. Now he has 12.2 points per game in the 6 games. He started 5 games in February. That was as many as he started that entire, that entire little segment of the season going for it first. So it's just been really fun to watch him. A fantastic February for Jacoby, and it's really something that you hope he can kind of keep together.
Especially such a young guy on this team. I mean, he's got lots of time left to learn here. Hopefully he sticks around as well, as he's just had a fantastic year. And I think he's one of the players this team can look to build around for the future.
Exactly, and that's another credit, I think, to Lamont Paris. One, identifying this guy, scouting him, getting him on the team, but now, he goes through such a rough start to the year. And there's some of those games where he played a lot more minutes one night and had a good night. The next night, he shoots about like 0 for 5, and he gets benched. And, but Lamont didn't lose faith in him. He might have, not played him as much, but he knew that this version of Jacoby Wright was in there all along throughout the year in practice, in the film room, getting it together. It's been just so much fun to watch. And that's just another credit, I think, to Lamont Paris. But this men's basketball team starting to kind of rebound. And finally, fams, rejoice. It's time to talk about the women's basketball team.
Absolutely, and it's hard not to mention one of the stars of this team, senior guard Zia Cook. She's been slicing up defenders all year long, JP.
I know. It's one of the premier scorers, not just in the SEC, but in women's college basketball in general. 15.6 points a game after her outstanding performance against Tennessee last night, where the Gamecocks started off a porous first quarter. 10 points, one of their worst quarters of the season, down by 10 on the road against a historical powerhouse like the Lady Vols. But guess what they did? This team doesn't quit. They don't wilt. Under the bright lights, under the pressure of a primetime Thursday night women's college basketball broadcast on ESPN, they showed what they're made of. Their mettle was tested. They ran away with the game, ran away with another SEC regular season. We'll get into their accomplishments later, of course.
Yeah.
But Zia Cook, one of the leaders of this team, one of just the most fun players, I think, to watch in all of women's college basketball.
Just an absolute spark plug. I mean, she starts every game for them, but let me tell you, they are electric to watch, especially when she has the ball in her hand. It's just great to see. Also, just seeing her as of late really heat up. She didn't have a great year last year, but we know the talent's there, and we've seen it this year. In our previous games before the Tennessee game, she had at least 20 in each of the last 2 and 19 last night. She's just taking it to the next level.
Yeah, we were getting these graphics and the stats together, and I was like, we gotta wait for the stats to update because she had such a good night. She's had such a good last couple weeks. We gotta present the best possible of her. And her points per game went up a little bit, so I was feeling a little vindicated on that. But I just, they're just so much fun to watch, and they're just been, what a historic year for them. What a great season. What a great run the last 3 or so seasons. I mean, this recruiting class that, their last game this Saturday against the Georgia Bulldogs, senior night, and
it's going to be an emotional one for sure.
And their honors that they will receive will not have been. They have gone through a lot to get there, and they have. It's like fighting up. It's like climbing Mount Everest, basically, playing in the SEC because you have. Kim Mulkey coming into the conference, coaching LSU. You have Kentucky, who's a basketball powerhouse, both men's and women's. You have the Lady Volunteers of Tennessee. I mean, legendary players, legendary program. the Florida Gators. I mean, teams that are
Ole Miss is getting a lot
Ole
better.
Miss, Ole Miss
State.
giving LSU
Yeah.
and South Carolina heart attacks back-to-back games last week. The Gamecocks barely escaped Oxford with a win in overtime. But that was another game, like the Tennessee game in that first quarter. Their mettle was tested, and they responded with just authority. And, you know, we saw the top 16 seeds released for the NCAA women's tournament. And, of course, the number 1 overall seed were your Lady Gamecocks.
How can you not?
But, man, the tournament field is stacked this year. You have the other 1 seeds being Stanford, Utah, and Indiana. Indiana, only 1 loss on the year. And getting number 1 vote. South Carolina's not unanimous anymore. So it's always, you know, you have a target on your back. But getting back to the players.
Yeah, one player I also want to point out who's been elevating her game consistently throughout her career, Camila Cardoso. I saw her play in the LSU game, and in the fourth quarter she had 12 points, 5 of 6 shooting, and she's just a beast. I don't know if there's anyone taller than her in the whole country.
Yeah.
If so, it's close, and she can just be so physical in the paint and just absolutely wear you down.
Yeah, I mean, 2 blocks a game. Just, you know, we were watching some of the footage you got, which was just so, you know, giving you props, buddy.
No.
But, I mean, just, it's not just the blocks per game. It's how she affects people around her. I mean, you see teams get the ball down to the low post, and you see just her show up, and it's just their shots, it's just their game plan. They dish it back out. Nobody wants to test her. I think, you know, it's like 2 blocks a game, and the amount of field goal attempts against her has to be like 4. So, I mean, there's really not that many. And it's like going in against, like, you know, you read about like some of those old school NBA teams that would just batter you, send you to the floor, chalk outlines in the paint. For South Carolina, we really got that same thing going on because they just do some crazy things on defense. And it's just, you know, when you play South Carolina, you're going to leave with a few bruises. I mean, Gino was whining about it just the last couple weeks.
And coming off the bench, too, that's so impressive. She doesn't even start for this team, but puts up numbers like she does.
Yeah, I mean, some of the stars on this team only play 25 minutes a game, which speaks to the depth that Dawn Staley has brought to this program. And it's able to, I mean, it's like a death by 1,000 paper cuts, except those paper cuts are really good basketball players because you have guys coming off the bench like who would start and be like number 1 scoring options for teams like, you know, top 15, UConn, Notre Dame, Louisville, North Carolina, NC State, and they're like the 7th player. They're the 2nd guy off the bench, or 2nd girl off the bench for South Carolina. But
Definitely.
Now it's time for the player I think that we've all been waiting for. Aaliyah Boston has just been outstanding this year, and she's really taken this team and captained it to great heights.
Definitely, and the thing I think so amazing about her is this year she statistically didn't have as good of a year as she did last year. She doesn't need to.
Exactly.
Everyone knows who Aaliyah Boston is, but what she cares about is getting the win.
Exactly. You know, and you see that. You see those posts, and it's like, how is Aaliyah Boston in the National Player of the Year race? And because she only has, I believe, 12.6 points a game and 8.8 rebounds, while like Caitlin Clark for Iowa and name for escapes me, but for Villanova. And, you know, some of those teams up in the Midwest and the North are crazy. But Boston has those stats because she only plays 25 minutes a night. If she played as many minutes as those people did,
Especially
she'd average like 30 a game.
Well, yeah, she doesn't need to do that either. She has a lot better supporting cast, which, you know, of course, credit to Dawn Staley for keeping these great players in Columbia. But for Aaliyah to, you know, still be able to put up numbers, but as I mentioned, leading the team. That's her job now as the senior leader of this team. They won it all last year with her at the helm, and, you know, let me tell you, it's looking like more of the same.
Yeah.
And with all these great pieces, the team as a whole working like a well-oiled machine, JP.
Definitely is. It's really impressive to watch. And I mean, really, they're the Golden Gamecocks. As you can see, 28-0, 28-0. 15-0 in the SEC, 119.0 offensive rating, which was number 1 in the country, shockingly. A 73.8 defensive rating, which is number 2 in the country, only to the Norfolk State Spartans. Quick shout out to them, having a great year. 2023 SEC regular season champions, clinched at least a share of it last night on the court in Knoxville, which you always love to do. You love to see all those people disappointed up there in Knoxville, Tennessee. And then 35 straight weeks at number 1, second longest streak in all of women's college basketball history, second only to that legendary UConn women's Huskies run, all the way back from, I believe it was like 2009 to 2011, where they didn't lose a single game, and they were number 1 for a very, very long time. But I mean, really, this program is just on top. And that's the only way you can really describe it, I think.
Absolutely, JP, and that's going to wrap up our first episode of Ball Don't Lie. Be sure to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at SGTV at USC.
To keep up with all of our content, be sure to also visit us online at sgtvonline.com. For SGTV News 4 Sports, I'm JP Barry.
And I'm Spencer Ball. And from all of us here at SGTV, have a great weekend, Carolina.
Forever to thee.